Okay, this video is about Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and he was interviewed on the Nutrition Made Simple channel run by Gil Carvalho. And Gil Carvalho is a smart guy. He's an MD, PhD. He reads a lot of papers, and he does know a lot. But I did think his behavior was a little bit strange, and I will explain. Esselstyn is sort of, the guy deserves a Nobel Prize 2 times over. He's the guy who did the most work to definitively prove that low-fat vegan diet reverses coronary artery disease. And he really gave nice examples of reversing coronary artery atherosclerosis in many patients, also reversing atherosclerosis in the mesenteric arteries that feed the intestinal tract, and in the arteries of the legs, which can cause peripheral vascular disease, meaning pain upon walking, claudication on walking, on exertion. Okay, so it's quite extraordinary. I mean, this is like a modern miracle. The most common cause of death is coronary artery disease atherosclerosis, and Esselstyn has cured it, 100% cured it, okay? But here's some things Esselstyn said. Coronary artery disease atherosclerosis isn't rocket science. CAD, coronary artery disease, is a foodborne illness. In countries where they eat plant foods, they don't get CAD. We had many great results before 1987 when statins were introduced. In other countries where they don't have coronary artery disease, they also don't have statins, like in rural China, the Tarahumara in northern Mexico, Papua New Guinea, and Central Africa. So the point of this was some people tried to say, oh, Esselstyn's results aren't really that good. He only got those results because some of his patients were on statins. And that's not true. It's been shown, like I said, in all these other countries, they don't take statins at all. And Esselstyn had tons of great results before statins were even introduced to the market. Later on, some of his patients were on them, some of them weren't. Statins were not the issue. Okay, Esselstyn continues. Reversal of coronary artery disease has been shown by Dr. Ornish and by me. It's also been shown in animal studies, like the Armstrong study, and it has been implied by the war rationing studies. When people had their meat and some of their other foods taken away from them, their incidence of obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and coronary artery disease dramatically decreased. Okay. Esselstyn continues. In patients who have truly followed my diet, I have never seen a single one get worse or have a CV event. Now that's an important statement. In patients who have truly followed my diet, I have never seen a single patient get worse or have a cardiovascular event. Cardiovascular event means like a heart attack or a stroke. So that's extraordinary. He's basically saying he has a 100% cure rate. That's incredible. In his published study, Journal of Family Practice, July 2014, he had one version of it's 177, the other one's 198 patients, and basically there was only one patient with a CV event, and that was a patient who didn't follow the diet. Okay, so the ones who followed the diet had 0 cardiovascular events in 4-year follow-up. Dr. Esselstyn does not allow nuts. He says nuts are highly addicting, and once you start, you can't stop. Nuts are also very fat, like 80 to 90% fat, because there's a lot of people on the internet promoting nuts, even saying they're a health food. I personally think that's ridiculous because they're so high in fat. They're not even just high in fat, they're also quite high in advanced glycation end products. I think that's a good thing to avoid. Jeff Nelson has a video at his YouTube channel called Veg Source, where he talks about how the fat from nuts can decrease blood flow. So I would be concerned about that. I think nuts are overrated. They're also, people talk about the nuts being beneficial in the Seventh-day Adventist studies, but Dr. McDougall said that, in his opinion, industry had a significant role in funding some of the Seventh-day Adventist studies, which led to promotion of nuts. Okay. Dr. Esselstyn continues. He says, I've got the best results for prevention and reversal of coronary artery disease because I'm the most strict doctor about avoiding animal foods, dairy, oil, high-fat plant foods like nuts, peanut butter, and avocados, and also avoiding caffeine, sweets, and soda pop. Okay, so he's real strict. And the reason he's real strict is because that's what works. The goal is to cure the patient. Okay? Patients will consent to, chemotherapy with no evidence given to them whatsoever, but you tell them you can't eat, a couple of foods and they're going to have conniptions. Okay, Esselstyn continues. These same countries, which have much lower rates of coronary artery disease, they also have much lower rates of cancer. Japan used to have 30 times lower rate of breast cancer. When the patients migrate to the United States, more westernized countries, they get the same rates of breast cancer and other cancers within a few generations, basically when they start eating the same diet as the population where the people are sick. Esselstyn continues. In Japan in 1958, they had only 18 deaths from prostate cancer. That's extraordinary. There are many, many thousands of deaths in, like USA, for example, currently. So he says in Japan, 1958, only 18 deaths from prostate cancer. By 1978, up to 137 deaths from prostate cancer, and it's only gone up since then. He then briefly talked a little bit about why is there higher breast cancer in the United States. He didn't go through all the risk factors and stuff, but he mentioned a few of them. Some of them are, earlier onset of menses, premature puberty from all the estrogens and stuff in the diet. More ABs is a reason. Fewer children being had, delayed onset of the first child being born, overdiagnosis by mammo, high-fat diets lead to people becoming obese, producing more estrogen out of their fat tissue, high animal food diets, estrogenic chemicals in the water, the food, EDCs in cosmetics, sedentary population, more OCPs, oral contraceptive pills. So he didn't go into all this, but he went into some of that. Okay, when Esselstyn's talking about a low-fat diet, his diet's like 10% in fat or less. Okay, that's an important point. So low-fat diet, when I say the word low-fat diet, I usually mean 10% or less. And that's kind of like the gold standard for, some people would say that should be called a very low-fat diet. There are guys like the Mastering Diabetes guys, Cyrus Kumbada and Bobby Bitterow, who say, well, in order to prevent diabetes type 2, you've got to keep your total fat below 15%. I personally think it's good to aim for keeping it below 10%. Dr. McDougall would say people who really follow his diet get about 7% of their calories from fat. And so it sort of depends on what you choose for your starch. If you're choosing white rice, potatoes, and sweet potatoes, those all have only 1% of calories from fat. Many fruits are very low in calories from fat. So these are all ways to minimize your dietary fat. Veggies also tend to be very low in fat. And it was quite extraordinary, reversing atherosclerosis, not even just stopping its progression, but reversing it to some extent in the heart, the legs, and the abdominal arteries, the mesenteric arteries to the gut. It's extraordinary. And then Dr. Carvalho, in my opinion, his behavior was a little strange. He's a bright guy and he knows a lot, but he said some things that I think were weird. He basically said that he would not give up on including animal foods and possibly oils in a healthy diet. I thought that was strange. And he recently made a video, I don't know if it was recently, but he made some videos saying that omega-6 cooking oils were not that bad. And it's weird. He says he doesn't have any sponsors, but it seems strange to me. Why wouldn't you just celebrate what Esselstyn did and try to even improve it more if it was possible and stick to it as tight as possible? You found something that frickin' works. It's hard to find something that works, okay? So what Esselstyn's saying is it's not inevitable that you're going to plug up all your arteries and be screwed. Look at Esselstyn. He's like 90 years old. He still looks great. He's still mentally with it totally. Okay, so what I'm getting at is Carvalho seems like he's sort of drifting down that path of what I would call moderate fat diets. He presented some papers suggesting, I screwed this up. This should be 20 to 30%. That was my mistake. It should be 20 to 30% of calories from fat is probably okay. I call that the moderate fat region. I personally think that's higher fat than I would want to take a risk of, because the more fat you eat, the fatter you're going to be, and the higher your risk of atherosclerosis. So I would think that's a mistake. But there might be something to it in terms of popularity. If you look at Carvalho's videos, he'll have 10,000 times, 10,000 times, 100 to 10,000, 100 to 1,000, 10,000 times as many views on his videos as I get, okay? So it might be that, he's real smart. He knows if you keep in the game of not excluding animal foods, not excluding oils or this other stuff, you'll stay in the popular circuit. You'll be allowed to be interviewed and stuff. Like Plant Chompers will interview Dr. Carvalho. It looks like those guys are friends. But Plant Chompers would never talk to me. It says, I'm divisive. Yeah, I'm divisive because I tell the truth, because I'm a Christian, and I just say whatever I think is true. But anyways, be that as it may, I'm going to put a link to Esselstyn's interview because I think it was a great interview. Esselstyn did great work, and he basically showed you how to cure the most common cause of death. And he also showed you that if you follow his diet, your risk of cancer is dramatically reduced, based on the epidemiology.